You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Listeners, welcome to Dr. Ann's Relationship Radio, coming to you from a beautiful morning in Northern California. I'm looking out the window thinking it's just really a beautiful day. I hope that you all have your favorite morning beverage with you and that you're ready to enjoy today's program, which is one that will offer ideas to parents about how to help their children past any shame issues that present themselves. And also, I, as an adult, really related to this book, so I'm not sure it's just for parents of children. I think it could be for adults, but we'll talk to the author in a moment. I remember, and what this book brought up for me, when I was a child, I was overweight, and I had no shame about this, and in fact, I didn't even realize that I was overweight until I entered kindergarten. It was there that I learned this ditty, and I wonder if any of you listeners remember this. Fatty, fatty, 2x4, can't get through the bathroom door. So she peed and did some more. Fatty, fatty, 2x4. Remember that? So that ditty followed me through second grade, maybe even into third. And I could still feel a distant shame issue that I still have even today. And I remember the pain it brought to me at age 5. I suspect we all have painful memories similar to mine. I had so much shame about the bullying, which wasn't called bullying when I was growing up. And I was so ashamed of it that I didn't even tell my parents. Somehow I thought they'd blame me. I think my kindergarten teacher told them about the harassment, and I remember sometime during the second half of my kindergarten year, my parents began giving me all sorts of ways to deal with the problem, like ignore it, punch the kid who said it. You know, all those helpful problem-solving suggestions. Well, those were not ideas that resonated with me. I was just a little girl, and it felt like I was being expected to solve what I thought of as an unsolvable problem. How do I talk back to a group of boys who were taller than I and bigger than I and punch them or just ignore them or tell them to shut up? I was scared. And in my experience as a psychologist, many, many children suffer shame issues caused by bullies at their school. And often these bullies are thought of as the cool kids. In my case, the cool kids were thin, and I was not. And let me frame this as a bit of reality. I was not obese. I was just chubby. But the weight issue has followed me throughout my life, and it became a deep wound. And I have to admit, listeners, every time I go into the store and try on something new, I look in the mirror and ask myself, does this make you feel fat? Or does this make you look fat? And I think many of us, especially many of us women, carry this around. So what could my parents have done better? How could they have helped me through this so my kindergarten self could have been comforted instead of being shamed and feeling like I didn't belong? I think that's a really good question. A few years ago, I used to think we'd come a long way since my years in kindergarten, but honestly, I question this thought because with my everyday patient interactions, I continue to find that most of my folks, the ones I see, have been the recipients of shame at a young age. Many of my patients are in their late teens, 20s, and early 30s, and I'm considering doing some research about what benefit people have from bullying others. There must be something about the idea of bullying that gives satisfaction to the people who are doing the bullying, but I have yet to discover what it is. Maybe they're bullied at home by their parents. Research will hopefully show. Today's guest wrote a book that I casually picked up to read so I would be well informed before having her on Dr. Ann's radio show. Well, I was not prepared for this read. On the surface, it looked like a very cute children's book, and I was ready for a quick skim before I asked our guest some questions about it on the air. I was not ready for the deep impact it had on me. I was totally unprepared to go back to kindergarten and relive all the challenges my 5-year-old self should not have had to face. I wanted to test this book's impact to see if I was the only adult, the only one, who would be deeply affected by it. So I did an experiment. I read this short book to one of my adult patients who is plagued by shame. She cried. Then I read it to a therapy group who sat in silence after I completed my reading, and I thought to myself, oh dear, they didn't like it. That conclusion was totally inaccurate, and slowly, one after another of my adult patients asked about their experience or talked about their experience with shame and how they wished that they had the support that courageous Gilbert, the groundhog, was given by the old oak tree. I was reminded about the old adage, never judge a book by its cover. What looks like a nice little kid's book turned out to provide a profound experience for many of my adult patients. Who would have thunk it? Regina McCarthy, author of Courageous Gilbert the Groundhog, is today's guest. I'm jealous of what I'm going to say next about her. She is a cum laude graduate of Boston College, and I creeped through college in undergrad. So she's cum laude, and she has a BA in Human Development, and she's a graduate of Loyola University with a master's degree in social work. Regina is a psychotherapist who is owner of Bluestone Healing Center, and we'll find out more about her accomplishments during our interview. Welcome to Dr. Ann's Relationship Radio, Regina.
Thank you, Dr. Ann, and thank you for all your kind words. That is so awesome of you.
Well, that's nice, but they aren't really kind. They're just true. And I just picked up on this recently. Kindness is one thing, but honesty is another. And honestly, I'm being honest. So,
well,
you're welcome. Before we discuss Courageous Gilbert the Groundhog, and by the way, I just love his name, and I love the title of your book. Would you share with us all the awards your book has won? Now, don't take up the whole hour. Just give us a brief overview.
All right, absolutely. You know, I am so proud of this book. Had no idea when I went to write it that this was all going to happen. I have 13 awards on my book.
Oh.
I have, do you want me to name them?
Well, if you'd like.
Sure. I have a Mom's Choice Award, a gold medal, a Reader's Favorite Book Award, a Nautilus Book Award, a Purple Dragonfly Book Award First Place, a Pinnacle Book Award, a Next Generation Indie Book Award finalist. It's a Beverly Hills Book Award winner, an Independent Press Award Distinguished Favorite, the Eric Hoffer Award finalist, the Montaigne Medal finalist, the Da Vinci Eye finalist, the Colorado Independent Publishers Association Evie Book, and it received a Reader's Favorite 5-star review.
Oh, my gosh. I am so happy for you. Not many books get one award, so for you to have all of those is totally amazing and speaks more highly of your book than even I could. I'm so curious about what I want to ask you next is what prompted you to write this book?
You know, I had no idea that I was going to write a book. I've been a therapist for almost 25 years, and it never dawned on me, but my husband used to say, "Oh, honey, you've got a book in you," and I'd look at him like, "Okay, right." Well, one evening, during my sleep, after I had just done some personal work at a weekend away, I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this story, just this story. I had no idea the details of it, but I thought, I need to go write this down, or I'm going to forget it. You know, like you forget your dreams when you wake up sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed my laptop, and I went down to my son's room. He was away at college, and I started writing. And I wrote all night long, and my husband came down in the morning. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "There's this book in my head, this story, and I just had to write it down." And then the next morning, when I went to make my tea, I was looking out the window, I was filling up my teapot, and there was this animal, no kidding, walking in front of our house that I had never seen on our property before, and I've not seen one since. And I said to my husband, "What is that animal right there?" And he said, "Oh, that's a groundhog." I'm like, "All right, that's it. That's going to be the main character of my story."
That is just such a neat story. I love it, and I can really relate to it because I never thought I'd ever write a book, had no desire to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
I've written 4. I don't know what happened.
Amazing books, I might add. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's kind of you, too. And actually, it's accurate.
It's truth. It is. And it is.
So, what is Gilbert's message? And we have about 2 minutes before we have to break.
Okay.
What is Gilbert's message?
Well, there's several messages. I can highlight them, or we can come back to them, but the gist is we have to take care of ourselves because we can't change anybody else. To know how to take care of ourselves, we have to know what's going on inside our body. We have to know about our emotions. Our emotions are our superpowers, and that's something that I wasn't raised with as a kid. I had no idea about emotions because everything was kind of like, don't cry, don't make a fuss, don't bother us, we're busy. I'm one of 10 kids. So it was a very busy household. The other messages are that we have to breathe. Breathing, calm, relaxing breathing helps us calm down our central nervous system, our anxious body. We have to practice anything that we want to become good at. We have to practice even expressing our feelings. And that change takes time. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. We would love it to. We are part of a quick fix society. But it really does take time.
I love those messages. Change does take time, and for a little kid, like in your book, a little groundhog named Gilbert, to think about change is just, or to be brave enough to even consider it is just sort of awesome and a great role model for the readers of your book. We're coming up on a break, Regina, and so listeners, we are going to come back to you in about 2 minutes, and until then, we will wait with the bated breath to hear what Regina McCarthy has to say. We will be right back.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
I'm going to take just a moment to remind everybody this would be a great day to go online and check out the Tornado Body Dryer. Talking about relationship radio, now you could talk about a body dryer. Goes right in your shower. It works great. I use mine every day. That's just www.tornadobodydryer. We'll be back right after this with more of Relationship Radio and Dr. Ann.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back, listeners, to Dr. Ann's Relationship Radio. We are here with Regina McCarthy, the author of Courageous Gilbert, the Groundhog, a book I have just fallen in love with. And Regina, before the break, we were talking about Gilbert's messages, and you kind of skimmed over them, and I'm wondering if you could address those a little bit more.
Absolutely, Ann. You know, the piece of the first message of by taking care of ourselves, we have to understand that we can't change anyone else. We can only change ourselves. And that's actually a line that the tree says to Gilbert, because I think at times we feel like, oh, if only I could change, well, personally, if I could change my husband, if I could change my kids, if I could change, siblings, or could I change the bully? And we can't. And so I go over this with the kids, and I ask them, who can we change? And I'm so delighted when they raise their hands and they say, only ourselves. I'm like, yes, they're getting this information. I can't change how anybody treats me. I can only change how my body responds to that treatment. I can't change anything in this world. I can only change how I respond to it inside. And so that's why it's really important for me to know what's going on inside me, so I respond to situations instead of reacting.
Oh, that's so true, and I can just speak from my experience with patients. Honestly, some of my patients, and many of my patients, think that if they just lecture the person who's bullying them or belittling them or harming them in some way, one more time, that they're going to get this aha moment and the light bulb is going to go on and they're going to say, oh, you were so right. I have never seen that happen. And I think what you just said is so important, that the only person we can change is ourselves. And we can train others how to treat us, though. I do believe that.
Absolutely.
Those are important messages. And I'm also wondering, how does the story of Gilbert relate to you sitting down there at all hours of the night writing this?
Well, that was me. That was me back in 4th grade. So there's a picture of Gilbert trying to present his book report in front of the class, and his face is totally red, his eyes are huge, and it says he forgot what he was going to say. Well, in 4th grade, I was giving an oral report, and I had little index cards with the words on the cards, and I couldn't read them. I was so afraid. I just said to the teacher, I have to go sit down. And she didn't understand, because, this was back in 1970. And well, I'd like to. I know that teachers are more educated today, so that's a great thing. Back then, this education wasn't there. This awareness wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And then in 7th grade, I was picked on by the bully, and I didn't tell anybody like you. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't tell anybody. I just went along with it. I felt that I'd be. Go ahead.
Just the idea that we are being bullied by somebody is shaming.
Mm-hmm.
And we often think it's our fault because we're so weird, so odd, so shy, so whatever it is that we tell ourselves. It's toxic, and it gets you at a core level.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that?
I have found that, and I feel that if I feel shamed by someone, I feel shame myself. And if I feel shame myself, that's because somewhere along the line I was taught that there's something wrong with me. And I also don't know what's going on inside me. I don't know how to stand up for myself. I don't know that I have emotions inside my body. I don't know what they are. I just feel all mixed up and scared and confused instead of, oh, that's my sadness, or oh, that's my fear, or oh, that's my anger. And each of those emotions, those are the 3 emotions I talk about in the book, in each of those emotions has so much information for me. Like, if I'm scared, then I need to know, all right, there might be something dangerous ahead of me. I might want to avoid that. Or it might be a signal, or it might be information that tells me what's right or what feels wrong. Or sometimes, like during this interview, I was nervous. I was scared to come on, but that just meant, okay, this is something I need to do. And then afterwards, I feel so empowered and so confident because I did it.
Yes. And I think that's probably really challenging for most little kids who are being bullied. But we're talking about shame a lot. So let's talk about it a little more. Tell us what shame is and how it connects to one's body, because how it connects to one's body, I think, is a topic that's not often discussed.
Right. So shame is that belief that I, as a person, am bad. I'm not enough in some way, whether it's good enough, thin enough, rich enough, smart enough, talented enough, pretty enough, you name it. You can put in whatever you want before that enough. But there's something about me that's wrong. So it's a value statement. Whereas guilt is I did something wrong. I made a poor choice. It's a behavior. Shame is I am, as a person, am wrong.
And I think that's such an important statement that you just made, because I have so many patients, and I include myself in this. I could be my own patient because of the fatty 2x4 stuff.
And by the way, I knew that, Diddy. I knew that as a kid, too. And I'm sad to say I probably said that to kids because I didn't know any better.
Well, yeah, but we carry the feedback of, let's say, kindergartners who have absolutely no brain development into our adult lives, and we carry these phrases, and this is what came up for me as I was reading your book, Fatty 2x4, so I could totally relate to it as an adult. And I'm wondering, how do you think shame feels different in children than it does in adults?
Well, I don't think that there's a whole lot of difference. If I feel ashamed of myself, whether I'm a child or an adult, I'm going to hide. I'm not going to put myself out there because I don't want to be seen, because that's vulnerable. I might make a mistake. Somebody might laugh at me. So I'm not going to speak up. I'm not going to reach out. I'm not going to ask for help. I won't take care of myself because I'm going to feel like I don't deserve it. I'll second-guess everything I do. I'll be critical of myself, and then I'm going to be super critical of other people. I'll start judging.
Yes, and you just said a really important word, vulnerability. We don't want to show our vulnerability, especially when we're being bullied.
Yes, okay. And, so as a kid, I had those messages. If I was afraid of something, somebody would have said, what are you, a scaredy cat? What's wrong with thee? Or if I was sad and I was crying, I got the messages, you're a sissy, stop the crying. Or boys might have heard, boys don't cry. And we shame our kids out of feeling their emotions. Or if I was angry, I might have heard, I'll give you something to be angry about. Don't you raise your voice to me, young lady.
Oh, and I'll give you something to cry about. That's the famous one, especially when we're crying. I already have something to cry about.
And so what are those messages? Those messages are, your feelings are not okay. Do not feel them because, well, really, I feel, because my parents didn't know how to deal with them. And there's 10 of us. 10 kids running around. There wasn't time to sit, cuddle, talk about it.
I have lots of empathy for your parents, having had 3 kids of my own.
Right?
So,
yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a time issue, but when I was growing up, what were feelings? We didn't even talk about feelings.
We didn't, and that's a big part of this book is...
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. It's a big part of this book is you have to understand, like I said, those are our superpowers. And if we're feeling vulnerable that we can't share them, we're not in our power. And if I'm in my power, I'm going to listen to that bully and I'm going to be like, yeah, whatever. Or I might say, that's not okay. Stop treating me that way. And then I'm going to walk away. Because I'm going to realize I'm worth more than that. I don't have to put up with that nonsense.
That is so profound, and I wish I'd had parents who knew that. I had good parents, but they didn't know what you're just talking about. And, boy, time is passing so quickly. We're coming up on a break again, and I want to ask you a question, but it has a longer answer than we have time for you to answer. So I'm going to go back to my own childhood for a second and say that we never talked about feelings in my family.
We didn't either.
Yeah.
No.
I think culture in some ways has evolved that talking about your feelings with trusted, safe people, not with the bully, is really important and to have a name. And I say to my group members, fine, okay, so-so, fair, and bad are not feelings.
Right.
I think we as our culture need to develop the words that are really accurate. And listeners, we're going to take a break right now, and we're going to come back with the author of Courageous Gilbert the Groundhog, and I love the pictures. We will be back in a couple minutes.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
This is Daryl Pullis inviting you to listen to America's Homegrown Veggie Show right here every Saturday morning at 10 Eastern Time. Great guests, great tips, and valuable information about growing your own vegetables, fruits, and herbs.
45 years of experience is behind the most trusted name in auto transportation. Passport Transport, the first and finest today. That's why Passport Transport is the preferred auto transport for major auto manufacturers, concours, museums, tours, and collectors, and should be your choice from across the state to across the country. When you have the need, go to PassportTransport.com and enjoy the peace of mind referenced experience will give you. Passport Transport.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back, listeners. We are here talking about Courageous Gilbert the Groundhog, And as I said before, I just love the illustrations in this book. They're so colorful and cute. And with its author, Regina McCarthy. And before the break, we were talking about shame. And Regina, I was wondering how parents can help with shame.
You know, one of the biggest things that, there's a few things. One of the things that parents can let their kids know is that everyone has some shame. Shame, gentle shame just lets us know that we goofed up on something. Adults do it. Kids do it. Somebody I was reading just used the example he was going to give a presentation somewhere, and he realized he left his fly down. An innocent thing had happened. Someone said, hey, zip up your zipper. And he's like, oh, gosh, that would have been a bad thing to do. It's not the end of the world. It's a little shaming, but it wasn't toxic. Right. Adults have shame. Kids have shame. And when kids do have a shaming moment, for parents, hold them close. Remain calm and let them know that you're okay. So that you honoring that feeling, because they're feeling awkward about whatever happened, but give them that, be a good role model during the shameful event.
That is really critical. And I think back to siblings and how they bully each other. And it's so important for us parents to get a grip on that and not to allow it to happen in our families. And that's my comment. That's damaged many people, too. You say on your website and Facebook page that this is a trauma and shock healing resource, your book is. What do you mean by that?
You know what, Ann, before I go on to that, do you mind if I go back to two more things with helping with shame? Because I really want to get these two messages out there, and then I'm happy to talk about the trauma and the shock. Another thing that parents can help is to avoid making kids do something they don't want to do. Like if there's a relative they don't know very well. Maybe they see them once a year, once every 3 years. Then sometimes it's like, go give Aunt so-and-so a hug. If the kids don't know that person and they don't feel comfortable in their body, don't force them to do it, because that teaches phoniness, and it also teaches them don't trust what's going on inside your body. Don't trust your own wisdom. Now, they don't need to be rude to that person, but it's important that we honor, we respect their emotions, especially their no. Because, if we don't respect their no, we're probably not respecting our own no.
Exactly. And I've seen this with little kids at the clinic. Oh, go say hi to your therapist. I'm not a little kid clinician, but I've seen it out in the hall, and they go, oh, no, Mom, I don't want to. So then the parent picks them up and makes them go do it, instead of saying, how can we work this out, or whatever would be comforting, however would be comforting to respond. And or forcing the kids to perform some, like they know a piano piece, or they know a talk or a poem, and making them do that everywhere they go. My gosh. The first few times it might have been fine, but make them perform all the time. I had that with piano and hated it and was terrorized by the piano recitals. And there was no me. It was like, that's what my mom wanted me to do. So parents, listen closely to this, because this is really critical in how your children will turn out. But I'm going to go back to this, what you say on your website. So you said, I'm going to quote it again, that this is a trauma and shock healing resource. Explain that to us.
Sure. So trauma and shock. Trauma, we tend to think that trauma is, and it certainly is, natural disasters, wars, school shootings, physical or emotional abuse. Those are definitely traumas. However, as a kid, falling off your bike can be traumatic. Witnessing a car accident can be traumatic. Moving homes, changing schools, parents lose a job, they get divorced, unexpected death of a loved one, having a family member with a major illness. Those are all traumas. And when we're little, we have very little or no resources to handle these events. So what happens is our brains do a beautiful response, and that's to go into the fight, flight, or freeze mode. Our frontal brain shuts off. That's our thinking, our logical brain. Our reptilian brain takes over, and that's where we just, go into automatic response. So we go into that fight, flight, or freeze. We're going to move towards the trauma. We're going to run away for it, or we're going to freeze in our tracks. Now, those are great responses that, animals in wild do this, of course, and that literally keeps them alive, and it, at times, could keep us alive. But if we grow up feeling helpless, overwhelmed, or trapped, or the traumas happen over and over and over, our brain and our body goes into shock, which means we go into that fight, flight, or freeze, and we're not even in danger. We're just always in that hypervigilance place. So constantly on the lookout. Am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? Constantly, looking at our surroundings. Is everything okay? Is everything okay? And so you'll see this in adults who have a hard time slowing down. They have a hard time calming down their bodies. They're always moving. They're full of anxiety, or they might always be arguing. Or you may know people who are great escape artists. They can't commit to things. They leave early. They'd rather leave than confront. Or you may know people who are always checked out. They're right in front of you, but you know their attention is a million miles away. And so when we're in that, we're not feeling, we're doing. And then we're numb to that helpful information of our emotions.
And you have explained that so beautifully, and I am saying that as a psychologist who is the main trauma therapist where I work, at the clinic where I work. So that was a beautiful explanation, and the parents and significant others and relatives are not aware or are not informed of what this looks like and what even a trauma is for a little kid. We often think of trauma would be like a war trauma or a sexual abuse or physical abuse, but it is way more detailed than that. That is too general.
Right.
I guess you agree. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
I want to talk about the old oak tree. The old oak tree, to me, in your book, was just a symbol of wisdom, kindness, unconditional love. So when I read the first solution that the old oak tree gave Gilbert the groundhog, I wondered why my parents couldn't have given me such a supportive solution to overcome my shame, which was fatty 2x4. What can parents do to help their little ones overcome those interpersonal challenges that usually pop up at school? What are some of the solutions that you teach in your book?
So, and our parents had parents, so our grandparents didn't have coffee table books on how to raise their kids, sitting around the house. They didn't learn those things. And so I've come to the realization and the acceptance that my parents did the best they could with the way that they were raised. In fact, our parents and grandparents were probably warned, don't give your kids too much attention. That's going to seriously damage them for the rest of their lives. So, unless our parents taught themselves how to parent in a healthy, loving way, they didn't have any good tools and skills. So, as a parent, it is really important that I understand what's going on inside my body, and if I get triggered, that's my stuff, and until I heal my past wounds, those wounds are going to keep running the show. So for me to be any good for my kids, I need to know what's going on inside me. And the solutions in my book are what are called somatic or body releases, like yelling into your hands, stomping your feet, marching around while telling the bully it's not okay to talk to me that way. And I practice this with the kids when I do a reading. And we'll use those I feel statements. So it's Peter Possum. And he's the bully in the book. I feel hurt, or I feel scared, or I feel mad when you say those things to me. It's not okay, and you need to stop. And if the kids are marching while they're practicing saying that, you've got that muscle memory happening. And my hope is that if they're if somebody does something that is bullying or shameful, that their body's going to remember with enough practice, which is why we have to practice. Oh, I have a response. This is what I'll say. And then I teach them, now walk away. Because you have to stay there and listen to what the bully says. It doesn't matter. You've said what you needed to say. You've spoken your truth.
I love that wisdom, and I just want to also say that many of us use our parents as a role model for how to parent. And I would say to all of our listeners out there, please don't do that. You may have come from a fabulous, fabulous family, or one family from hell, whatever you come from. It doesn't make how you were raised the right way to raise your child. So get some books, listen to some podcasts, put some new information and ideas into your mix of how you think about parenting.
Absolutely. There's so many ways. Yeah, there's so many ways to get educated today, so you don't have to be that parent.
Exactly, and I use myself as an example. I came from a really nice family, and I used that as a role model, and it was a disaster. So I got some books.
Right. And you know what, Ann, there's something else that really concerns me about society is we're very into laughing at people. We're very into teasing. Those programs on TV where somebody falls and hurts themselves and everybody laughs about it. That's so not cool. You know, if somebody hurts themselves, if somebody is embarrassed about something that they did, and then everybody laughs at them, and I feel like we do this a lot with our kids. If they mess up, then it's, oh, did you hear about what so-and-so did? Kids need to know that they can count on their parents, no matter what. That they can come to the parent and talk to them, and if the parent, isn't feeling okay about themselves, they're not going to be there to listen. So don't tease your kids.
That is so important. Empathy is really going away a lot, I think, in our society. Especially for little kids. We're supposed to suck it up and go do your thing. But that is not what little kids are equipped to do.
Right.
And Regina, let me back up. The old oak tree teaches Gilbert the groundhog how to breathe. And I was so that your tree, in such a great metaphor, gives Gilbert a way to overcome and to help himself. And as I was reading your book, I've read it 3 times now, I was struck by, wow, why couldn't my parents give me something that would be helpful instead of telling me to go punch the bully? So talk to us about the benefits of deep breathing.
Absolutely. The breathing technique that I put in my book, I learned from Dr. Andrew Weil some 20 years ago, and I've been teaching it to my kids' classes. I've been teaching it to high schoolers, graduate students. I taught it to people that were in rehab at the local hospital.
Regina, I'm going to have to interrupt us because
absolutely.
I'm so interested in our conversation. Time got away. So, listeners, we're going to be right back with Regina McCarthy in a couple of moments, and we will pick up where we left off.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's DOCS, the number 4, patientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Live closer to your food source. Learn how to grow it yourself. Please join me every Saturday morning at 10 Eastern on America's Homegrown Veggie Show for tips and advice from the country's best gardeners.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back, listeners. And before we had to go to break, we were talking with Regina McCarthy, a wonderful author, about deep breathing and what the benefits are. And I'm wondering if you could briefly tell us about that, because that's a great skill.
Absolutely. So the breathing technique that I learned from Dr. Andrew Weil is called 4-7-8 breathing for relaxation. And it's not difficult at all. You inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for 7 seconds. And then you have a nice long exhale for 8 seconds. And the exhale's through your mouth. The inhale's through your nose. And this breathing technique, it's one of the easiest ways to calm down the central nervous system so your brain can process, your entire body can feel calm and relaxed. It lowers blood pressure. It calms a racing heart. It helps digestion. And he says it's just if you can't fall asleep at night, it's a great thing to do. And so what also it does is if you use it, you can use it preventatively, like do it in the morning, do it at noon, and do it at night. So you could put a timer on your phone that says breathe. And what it'll build up in your body so that you won't go to those highs you used to go to or those lows. You'll stay more in the middle, which I love that. And I teach the kids, that long exhale is what helps remove carbon dioxide from our lungs. And most of us don't breathe deeply. If I get scared, I might go, and then I'm not breathing at all. Or if I'm nervous, I might start shallow breathing, and I'm not getting any of that carbon dioxide out of my lungs. And if that's building up, because it's toxic, I might get sluggish. I have low energy. It can cause depression. Breathing is amazing, and it's free. It's literally right under my nose and doesn't require a prescription.
Exactly. And as you're talking, I'm like doing the breathing. I'm going, I need to do this because in between patients, I need to have some more oxygen and get rid of whatever it is that we've been discussing that tends to hang out in my body after a session. So that's a great tool.
We all do. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It's a great tool for kids. And I wish that when I was growing up in 1901, that my teachers had been able to teach us that. Thank you for telling us about that. And I'm also curious about this. Today's world brings unique challenges to teenagers. Do you think your book would help teens overcome their tough emotional challenges?
I do. My son used to be in the musicals in grade school and in high school, and I loved being a prop mom. So I'd help go backstage and get all the props on the stage and for the musical. And there was kids in the back having panic attacks. And I went up to the director and I said, we got to do something with these kids. And like you said, it's so unique what they're going through. These kids are studying for finals. They are applying to colleges. They are thinking about prom. They're thinking about their lines. They're thinking about the music they might be playing. They might have a job. They might have kids that they're helping, with homework, or they might be, helping with. They've got so much going on in their lives. Oh, yeah, and they're a high schooler. They're thinking about dating. They're thinking about all the high school stuff. And so I started teaching them the deep breathing technique, and then I was doing some other kind of grounding meditation with the kids, but also talking about getting this stuff out, using the releases that are described in the book when you're frustrated to get things out of your body.
Mm-hmm. And in my experience with, I taught 6th grade years ago, to 42 6th graders, and honestly, deodorant was a big trauma.
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
And so we can take it down to the littlest thing that we adults just probably have forgotten about what deodorant was about. And if you smell, and these are all important things that you're bringing up about how to manage and how to have a conversation and how to be kind to people who are around us. We don't know what they're going through. When I was sitting behind my desk, I never dreamt that 3 of my kids were being teased because they had BO and they hadn't ever heard about deodorant. I taught in a lower socioeconomic area, and I was just like, what? But we helped it. We didn't shame, and they got through it, I hope, in what they felt was a really kind way.
Nice.
Back to the old oak tree, who I just fell in love with. The old oak tree. Yeah,
may I say, I did not illustrate my book. I love my illustrator, Sue Detman, and I just needed to make a plug for her because she was amazing in drawing. She painted all of the illustrations with watercolor in the book, and we would meet once a month, and she'd show me what she did, and I'd say, oh, this has to be a little bit like this has to be a little bit like this. And after a while, she knew exactly what I wanted. She was just awesome to work with.
Well, I'll give her a plug, too. I don't know her, but I will say that her illustrations bring your words into visual. And many of us are visual learners, so to have the words and the beautiful drawings together is really a beautiful gift that you've given the reader. The old oak tree who has eyes, I love this for the old oak tree. He gives Gilbert the groundhog techniques for healing. Do you have any others in your arsenal of self-care ideas?
You know, there's so many things that we can do. Just drink more water. All of us, hydrate more. Have a gratitude journal. Have a journal. Volunteer someplace. Laugh more. Take a yoga class. If you've ever heard of that, it's a laughing yoga class.
No, I've never heard of that.
They're a riot if you have the opportunity. Yeah. And we just laughed our butts off the whole time we were in it. So much fun. Get a massage. Practice forgiveness. Do some sort of art. Listen to your favorite music. Pray. Have positive thoughts. This one I got from Dr. Andrew Weil. Give up TV and newspapers for 2 weeks. Just, have a moratorium on the news. Cut some fresh flowers, bring them inside. Do yoga, tai chi, exercise, chant. Walk a labyrinth.
I love those ideas. Are those on your website?
They are not, but I should add them to my website.
Oh, yes, you should.
Yeah.
You could send them to America's Web Radio also, and we'll put them underneath your talk that's going to be archived.
Wonderful.
And you have a private holistic practice called Blue Stone Healing Center. Describe your practice for us.
Sure. So I work with my clients, body, emotion, mind, and spirit. So it's not just body, we're not just talking. We're connecting our thoughts to our bodies, to our body awareness, to that information inside, which can create the healing. And so it's very spiritual. We bring in their spiritual connection, whatever that means to them. And, it's whatever fills you up inside. That might be God, that might be a sunset. Whatever fills you up and makes you feel whole inside, that's your spiritual connection. Because when you feel connected and complete, you feel grounded, you feel safe, and you can be the person that you're meant to be.
That's your authentic self.
That's right.
I know that. I really hope my patients understand what the authentic self is, because not many people do. I'm also wondering, how does a holistic practice differ from other types of therapy? And we're going to have to make this shorter than I wanted it to be because, again, we're coming up on the end of the program in about 3 minutes.
Okay.
So,
well, I use a lot of heart-centered hypnotherapy with my clients, in a holistic way. So again, it's spiritual and it's body, emotion, mind, spirit. And in that trance state, and trance is as we're driving from point A to point B and we don't remember how we got there, or we're watching TV, we're all in trance state all the time. And so I take them in the trance state back to the trauma to help them determine what do they begin to believe about themselves, these self-limiting beliefs, and then how do they decide to behave based on those self-limiting beliefs. And we change those by healing that trauma, that old incident. We reverse the beliefs, and then that client can take back their power to become that authentic self, the self that they were meant to be, the self that they were born.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the the person who they were really born to be.
Yeah.
And Regina, we aren't going to get to cover everything I wanted to ask you, but I'm also wondering, how can our listeners contact you?
Absolutely. Please contact me at my website, www.courageousgilbert.com. I also have a Facebook page, Courageous Gilbert. There's lots of information there on parenting and children. But if you want to contact me or buy a book, courageousgilbert.com.
And is Courageous Gilbert the Groundhog also on Amazon?
Yes, it is. If you buy it on Amazon, that's fine. I just don't know who it's going to, so I can't autograph it for you.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I want to thank you so very much, Regina McCarthy, for being such a heartfelt guest and for sharing some new ideas that will help our listeners have better relationships with themselves, their kids, other people. And Courageous Gilbert the Groundhog can start us all on a healing journey. And by the way, as I said 3 or 4 times before, this book is beautifully illustrated, not just for children, but I, as a practitioner, loved it. So listeners, until next week, this is Dr. Ann Schubert asking you to remember that only you can create your world the way you want it to be. Have a great week.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.